All right, there we go. Make sure the audio is working. And it is. Just going to get my paints together and I will begin. Alrighty. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today I'm painting a Knight of Casterly Rock from the Song of Ice and Fire miniature game. It's a great game that not a lot of people play, but if you've never heard of it, I encourage you to check it out. It's awesome. I'm starting off with Skeleton Horde, and I'm going to do this for the horse. This miniature was primed in like a red-brown sort of color, and then zenithal from above with Wraithbone. And if you're not familiar with the term zenithal, it just means the zenith is the point of the sky directly above your head. So zenithal is just when you spray from above down onto the miniature to assist your paint in looking realistic in terms of shadows and highlights. Some painters just use it as a visual guide, but for contrast paint, it works quite well for just applying your shadows and highlights for you. So I'll just put this contrast paint straight onto the miniature, and then some parts will be darker and some parts will be lighter without me having to do anything. And I'm all about steps that do things for me. So that's what I did. This guy is going to be predominantly red, since that is the color. I'm basically following close to the box art with this guy. Close-ish. They wore red, or they wear red, and got silver armor. That's basically good enough for me. I'm just making sure to get in all the nooks and crannies of the skin here. The color that we're going to use on the bridle and other equipment is darker, and the red is darker than this Skeleton Horde, so we can be messy and not have to worry about messing up our miniature. Main thing you want to remember when painting horses is that legs have two sides. I know that that might be a little ridiculous sounding. Obviously, legs, no matter what they're on, legs usually have multiple sides. But with horses, you know, it can be, if you're just looking at the miniature like this, it can sometimes, you can forget to paint the inside of the legs on the other side, stuff like that. I've several times finished a paint job and then realized that a horse's leg is just unpainted. So that's my horse top tip. Always remember that legs are in fact 3D. Alright, so there's our horse color, and as you can see here, because of the primer, we have some lighter sections up here, and then we have under here, where the zenithal primer didn't get to, it's a little bit darker, and we didn't have to paint anything differently. We just put the one brown on, and we were set. So now I'm going to do all the bridle and the straps and everything that holds all this stuff onto the horse. And for that, I'm going to use probably wildwood. But let's see what I just find. Just take a quick look. There we go. I found wildwood first, so that's what we'll use. Ooh, that wildwood's dying. Let's see if we can find a different wildwood. There we go. So we do have to be a little careful with this because getting it on our horse would be not helpful. And getting it on the, whatever this is called, horse clothing, it's going to be red, would also not be helpful. I'm curious now what this stuff would be called, because I'm guessing horse clothing is not correct. So just being careful going along the edge here. It connects up to the saddle here. And we're going to do the saddle in this same color, so just paint all that in while we're here. Most of the saddle is hidden by his clothing and his armor, so that's convenient. Just making sure not to get this on the skin of the horse. So we could come back and fix it. It wouldn't be that big a deal, but I'd like to not have to, if at all possible. There we go. Alright, so there's all the stuff, and actually I'm going to paint his scabbard in this color as well. Alright, now we're going to get our main color out, which is going to be Blood Angel's Red. Right there. This is going to be the horse clothing, which I still don't know what else to call it, as well as his cape and his, basically all the cloth that appears on this miniature. Typically when I paint cavalry, I like to do the saddle blankets in a bright color. However, since most of this miniature is going to be red, I'm going to do the saddle blanket just in a very neutral black. And being extra careful now to not get this on the skin. Got a tiny little bit there, but it's hidden by the rest of the cloth, so that's okay. There we go. We're also going to do this on the inlay of the shield and the feather sticking out of his helmet. Alright, so then, like I said, I'm going to do it on the inlay of the shield. We're going to come back and paint this wolf with normal layer paint so we can be messy on that. Then I'm going to do the cape here, and we're going to paint the armor with a silver so we can be messy around the silver, or what will be silver, and not worry about that either. Howdy to you too. Welcome. Let me just make sure to get all this up here. Alrighty. Then, what do I have left? Oh, I have the, whatever these are called, his robes? I don't know. The rest of the cloth on him. And then the feather. And then we're done with the red. And I think we are, no, we're not quite done. We're almost done with contrast. We can move on to our layer paint. I see something I forgot to paint with the wildwood. I have to do the stirrups in wildwood. Oh, I missed the spot of the cape there too. Alright, so that should be the red, other than the feather. We'll just get the feather real quick. The plume, I guess you could call this. Maybe it's not just a single feather. Medium with regular paints at all. How did it turn out? I have not done it extensively by any stretch. I have mixed contrast medium with white. The heck is the GW white called? Whatever the Games Workshop white is called, White Scar. I mixed it with White Scar to see how it would fare compared to Apothecary White, since Apothecary White is quite gray. And it worked okay. It doesn't, the thing with Apothecary White is it shades the white. So you have like white primer, for instance, already down, and you put that on top of it and it helps shade it. The mixing the contrast medium with white really just gives you like a white that's oddly shaded because the recesses are super bright. So that didn't work so well. But I'm sure you could mix contrast medium with other paints and get things to come out just fine. The main thing I use contrast medium for is for applying my transfers, because I'm typically painting with contrast paint, and so the contrast medium has the same finish as a normal contrast paint. It just has no pigment in it, and so when you put it over the transfers, the lines around the transfer completely disappear. That's my main use for it. But I'll have to give it a try using it more with regular paint to sort of make homemade contrast paints, basically. I've tried it with roughly equal parts heavy body acrylics, water, and medium to fairly good effect. Although, yeah, when I tried it with yellow, I also had the weird inverted light pattern. Yeah, it seems like with lighter colors. And it might work if you then went back and recess shaded or something, so that you'd still tint the surface whatever color you had made with the contrast medium. You just wouldn't get the automatic shadows basically out of it. But it could still be useful for sure. Alright, I was just painting the stirrups there. Now I'm going to get Black Templar and paint the saddle blanket. And then just have to paint the axe handle. Or the axe handle? The spear handle, spear shaft. And then we're all set. Well, all set with contrast paint. all the way in there. And the other side. On this miniature, well, this game, I should start off by explaining that this game is played where, as you can see, obviously this miniature is an individual model, but you place these miniatures onto stands with other miniatures. So he's going to be sitting with 3 of his buddies. He'll never be by himself unless he happens to be the final model in that unit. And so there's a bunch of little detail and stuff in here that I'm not super worried about. I just painted it black because he's not going to be... If he was a character off by himself or something like that, maybe I would take the time. But with how this game is played and how this model will be seen, most likely, I can just do all this in black and not be concerned about it. Just make sure to fill that all in. And now we just don't have to worry about it. It speeds up painting time, and we can move on. So now I will do the spear, and I'm doing this in the same color I did the horse, Skeleton Horde. However, the horse, typically, I advocate for not using the same color on different parts of a miniature. So, for instance, horse skin and spear shaft wood would not be identical in color, typically. So I usually like to use different colors. However, because we used a zenithal, the spear is much brighter than the horse skin, and so using the same color on top of it will still give us different enough results that they won't look identical. And as you can see there, the horse skin and that are basically 2 completely different colors, even though we use the exact same contrast paint on top of them. Alright, now I'm going to get some Gore Grunta fur. At least I hope I am. I'm looking for it. Is it this? Nope, that's Cygor Brown. Don't need that. Here we go. Gore Grunta fur. And I'm going to put this onto the gloves that he's wearing. Just being careful not to get any on the spear. If some gets on the metal, or what will be metal, though it's not a big deal, we'll just paint right over it. But the spear I would rather not have to come back and correct. We'll get it in here also, and we'll just make these straps that are holding his shield onto his arm. We'll make those the same color for paint job simplicity. Alright, and there we go. So now we will move on to our silver, and for that we're going to use Iron Warriors. My go-to silver recently. I don't know if this happens to other people, but I have a tendency to, for instance, find a silver that I like, and then every miniature for a month, that's the silver I use. And even if I might highlight it differently every time or do something different with it, it's always that's what I'm coming back to. And I'll do that for a lot of colors. And then I'll find a new color and I'll use that color for a couple months, and every miniature I paint will be using that color. And I don't know if it's necessarily bad or good, it just is. And I'm curious if other people do that as well. Alright, so I'm painting in all the armor, and I realize I need to paint his boots in Gore Grunta fur also, so we'll do that after we do the silver here. I forgot about them. I'm looking at a miniature that I painted several months ago, which is the first miniature for this unit, as my guide tonight, so I keep noticing details that I forgot on him. I find mixing paints more fun than using things right out of the pot. Absolutely fair. That makes sense. I assume based on the title of my of the series here and the stream, you can kind of figure out what my preference is. But absolutely, if mixing paints gets you your best results, then by all means, that's the way to do it. I'm also not opposed to mixing paint. I just like to paint straight out of the pot. And I think it's, sorry, not straight out of the pot, straight from the pot. And I think it's also a good thing to stream, just because I feel like when most people are starting out, that's what they're doing. They're opening the pot, dipping their brush in, and going to town. And while I will say that thinning paint and all that kind of stuff probably gets better results 99 times out of 100, when you're just learning, you're not going to be able to achieve those results anyway. And so I think learning just how to do basic techniques with basic paint and stuff, I think works. But yeah, Rose says, I got yellow, green, and magenta paints, and now I'm thinking of using them for lots of things that my basic palette is probably better for. Yeah. I often mix a color, put it in one of those paint strip type things. Oh, I see. Gotcha. Yeah. So you make your own color and then you have it for reference going forward. Makes sense. Yeah, I find that for me personally, returning to the same mixed color is hard. Like making more of it, basically, it's really hard for me. Probably because I don't track the recipes that I'm using very well, and so I just will avoid mixing paint if I'm painting an army, for instance, or something that I need to do a lot of models on. But I'll mix paint more often if I'm doing a single one-off figure that I know I'll never have to match with anybody else. Then I'll sort of mix paint because I want a slightly different brown or a slightly different green or things like that. But I do so much army painting that I just don't have the skill to consistently mix paint to be the same color, and so I kind of stay away from it. My Admex Skitarii inner and outer cloak colors. I'll have to. This is a constant struggle for me. Is people will comment on either a live stream or a video, something like that, for instance, like talking about your Skitarii. I have no easy way of interacting with that person's models. And like you can't put a picture in a YouTube comment. So I want to try to find a way that is easy so that I can interface with people easier like that. Because like what would be really cool is if I could just like click your comment and there was a picture of your Admex Skitarii that I could just be like, oh yeah, that's awesome, blah blah. But that doesn't really work on YouTube, so I need to figure out something to make that happen. Because it happens a lot more on comments on videos. Someone will say, I tried this technique, or it came out pretty cool. I'm like, awesome, can I see it? And then it's like, well, how do you actually get it to me? It's kind of a struggle. Let's see. If you haven't watched Draw Mix Paints How to Mix Any Color, that's where 90% of my knowledge comes from. I've never heard of them. I'll have to check them out. They aren't photo ready yet. They're ship with shame playable at best. Michael says, I don't think there's an option for that. Is there? I've never seen anyone do it. Yeah, so like there's no option built into YouTube for sure. I just wish there was some way that I could do it. And what I've been thinking of is that I would just have a set up a website basically for the channel where you could submit pictures if you tried a technique or if you just wanted to get feedback from other people who watch the same videos or whatever, and that might be a way to do it. But still, like, it's going to that's going to an outside platform, so it's already harder than just being on YouTube. But if there's no way to do it within YouTube, I guess it's sort of silly to be like, oh, I don't want to use a third-party source because there's no other choice. But we just have to think about it. Maybe just a Facebook group. How about just a Facebook group? That'd probably be the easiest thing to do rather than a website. In that way, I could just... That would be the easiest thing. It's almost like you want like a community Instagram account where anyone could log into the Instagram account and submit their picture as a post. It would obviously never work. You'd get trolls or something who would just delete the account or something like that. But that's almost what you want, is something like that. Let's see. I've lost something. I've never tried phone OBS, but it's pretty trivial to capture a web page on desktop. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I'm using it currently on my phone, and it works pretty great. Maybe a Discord-specific chat that goes directly to your YouTube. Yeah, maybe Discord is the way to do it. That might be the way. I'll be giving this some thought going forward. Alright, so now I'm going to do the boots of this guy that I forgot to do earlier, and I'm going to do the base real quick so that can start drying before we have to work on it some more. So this is Gore-Grunta fur again, and I'm just painting in the boots of this guy. There has to be a bot that does that specific thing. Yeah, there probably is. You're probably not wrong. That would be ideal. Alright. I'm going to find a color real quick. I think I'll just do Cygor Brown because it's here that I will do the hair of the horse in. So you just got a little bit of hair up here. This hair might be a little dark for the skin tone of horse, but I don't really know how horse skin color to hair color works. I assume they're usually close-ish, but I don't know. Maybe you can have a white horse with black hair or vice versa. But for now, it'll just be this color. And Cygor Brown's a great color, and if you don't get to use it, then it's just no good. Alright, so then I'm going to use some Guilliman Flesh tone, or Guilliman Flesh, rather. Right there. Oh, maybe I'm not. I forgot about these lines here. I had this guy, when I primed him, I had him rubber banded to a piece of wood or a stick or something. And so I forgot those rubber band lines were there. So we're going to have to put an actual color down first to cover those. So we'll go with Tallarn Sand. And then we'll put a different color down. Need a bigger brush than this. So just going to cover the base. This Tallarn Sand is getting thick. Must have left it slightly open or something. Man. Doesn't have to be super great coverage because of how I'm going to do the base, but would like to at least cover the red. Because this miniature was red plastic to start off. Like that red. So we'll just cover that up. And that'll be good enough for how we're going to do the base later. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll put the Guilliman Flesh on top of it. Let's see, maybe... Oh, they look kind of cool, the lines, maybe like jousting lines or something. I gotcha. The way I've already started basing the Lannisters doesn't really allow for me to have anything else on the base, which admittedly is kind of dumb. But for this, I'm just sticking with them. How I've already started, so. Alright, then I'm just looking at this finish guy to see which gold I used on him. It was just Retributor, okay? So, Retributor gold, which is somewhere. Probably, here it is. Retributor armor. Oh, that's right, all the Game of Thrones models are colored. Yeah, they're colored because it's like a... Well, no, it's not really. That's not a good comparison. They're colored in the colors that is like the main color of the army. So that hypothetically you wouldn't have to paint them and you could still tell them apart. So I'm just doing the trim basically on his armor now in this gold. So that, and he's got some like fancy lion decorations or something up here. I'm not exactly sure. Did I do the... Oh, okay. And on the other one I did the... Yeah, they're like lion heads, that's right. And then I actually did the trim of the shield in this gold also. So I painted that silver earlier for nothing. Oops. What else is gold on this guy? Oh, the lion on his chest is in gold. Okay. Again, you could go crazy with detail like this, but because of how these models are being presented in units, I'm not super worried about the crazy levels of detail. I'm all about just get it done in this case. Alright, that's good. Does the horse have any? Nope. Alright, so just this armor, or the trim here. Did I paint the back of the shield? Yeah, I did. Okay. So just do the trim of the shield, and the gold will be done. And then I gotta paint the wolf on the shield. And then highlight the silver. And then highlight the red. And then we'll be ready to do the base. We're at 32 minutes, so we're right on time. Nice color theme, by the way. I don't know why, but I really like it. Thanks. I can't take too much credit for it because this is basically the color scheme that's on the box. But hey, I still had to look at the box and then figure out what colors to match that. So I will still happily accept the compliment. All right, I'm gonna take some Grey Knight Steel now. Right there. And I'm going to paint the tip of the spear and then highlight the rest of the silver, rest of the armor. So first I'll do this. I always kind of make a little joke in my head about whenever I talk about painting the tip of the spear on a cavalryman, because like historically cavalrymen were the tip of the spear of the army. So, just dumb humor, but I think it's kind of funny. So I'm just highlighting the rest of this silver, just kind of on the flat panels, just getting a little bit of it on there, but leaving some of the dark silver still there, just to brighten it up a little bit. Logged off. Yep, that's about the reaction I expected. Alright, oh, we got a little bit more here. And then just a little bit on the horse's head. Oh, and then we got to do all the buckles and stuff on the reins and all this. So I'll just very carefully paint these in. There's the... I don't know what that thing's called. The like grommet on the edge of the bit. I don't know what it would actually be called. Maybe it's just part of the bit. I don't know. My knowledge of horses is not what it used to be. we go. Alright, so now I just need to look at the one I've painted previously and see if I... Yeah. Looks like I used some Null Oil on him. So we'll do that again. And then we're going to dry brush him. And then we'll see where we get with that. I'm now wondering. No, that's definitely contrast. I don't know. The one I painted before looks looks quite different. The red is quite a different color. So I'm a little confused what's going on, but we'll look at them both next to each other when I'm all done here and we'll figure it out. There, now that the wash is in, you can see the lion head. Wasn't really clear before. Yeah, historically, brightly colored clothing, especially reds like this, was quite popular, and for good reason. We should bring it back. I agree. I agree. I mean, I say this as a person who, like, has mostly neutral or dark colored shirts and stuff, but regardless, I'd be happy to go back to wearing... I mean, in Georgia heat, I don't know if I'd want to wear a full suit of armor, actually. Let's slow the roll there a little bit. But, you know, otherwise, I'd be happy. Just get a little bit of this up on the spear here. Alright, that looks about right. So now, I have no idea what I dry brushed the red with last time. So I'm just going to take a guess. While I'm thinking about it, actually, I'm going to use my Golem and Flesh on the base. And as you can see, there's already like a sort of ground cover dirt sort of texture on the base. So that's all this is doing, just getting in there and bringing that out. Like I said, most of it will be covered anyway, but in case some shows through, it's nice to at least make it look half decent. That's historically accurate too. You typically put armor on like 10 minutes before the battle. Yeah, I imagine you couldn't just walk around for hours in armor. Put it on when you need to not die, and then take it off again once the threat of dying is gone. Well, the threat of dying from an enemy combatant. I think probably in the medieval ages the threat of dying was ever present. But alright, so what the heck did I dry brush this miniature with? Ah, I know what I did. I dry brushed it with Cadian Flesh Tone. Normally a skin color, but also a good color to be dry brushed over bread. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take my larger brush here. And I'm going to get some of this on there. And then I'm just going to wipe some off. Most of it off, in fact. I'm going to wear a mask and armor to protect myself from COVID. Sounds like a plan, man. Do it. Alright, so here we go. Gentle dry brush onto the red here. A little too heavy there. Oh, and I have to do the white on the lion also. I'll do that in a second. So just being very gentle with this. Probably not as gentle as I should be even being, but just gonna get the bottoms of these things here. There we go. It's a little better. Still doesn't look like my first one. Maybe the basing is going to help. And if you're curious, I'm purposely not showing the other one because I want to do it at the end. I want to show them both together to see how close we got. But yeah, I guess that's close-ish. I don't know. All right, I'm going to paint the wolf here. All right, I'm going to head Sleepward. Got it. Thanks for the stream. Glad I caught it. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. We're almost done here. We've got this wolf to do. And then the base. And we're done. So, I'm going to start with Pallid Witch Flesh and just paint the wolf in. Pallid Witch Flesh is a very, very slightly off-white, and so it applies much smoother than your typical whites can sometimes. And I don't know the exact science, but basically white pigment is big, so you can get it's easier for the medium and the pigment to separate. Being a slightly off-white, this will mean the pigment size, I believe, is a little bit smaller, and so it won't separate as easily. And separation is bad. You'll get chalkiness or thinness or won't apply well or whatever. So there's that. We gotta wait for that to dry before we can touch that with anything. Throw Skorax White in the trash. Yes, exactly. Alright, I'm just gonna take some Gorthor Brown while we wait for that white to dry. And I'm just gonna highlight the tail of the horse here just a little bit. Just like that. Kind of like a dry brush, but the brush is still wet. So it's like a sort of an overbrush, I guess, but not really. Overbrushing is something different, but whatever. You get the idea. Now, I'm going to go on to the basing. So for that, put him in frame at least, I got to grab a bunch of tufts. So let's see. We'll use some of these. What else will we use? Some of these for sure. Won't use the purple ones, but there's a little green one on there that I want to use. And nothing else in that pile that we want. Some more of those green ones. Alright, let's see what else we have up here. No. No. We'll use some of these. And some of these. Alright. That should be good. 4 different types. So we'll use those, and these. Or these. Yeah. Cool. So, Super Glue does not have to be Army Painter. They don't sponsor me. They don't get a brand call out. And tweezers, which are made by another company that doesn't sponsor me, but I don't know what company that is. Trim. That doesn't show up on camera at all. There we go. Trim. Sure. Tweezers work fine for me. So just grab one off. Make sure to open your super glue. I just put a little dab of super glue on the bottom and then spread it around. And then just find a spot and stick it down. So I'm going to start by doing a couple of these. Then I'm going to move on to another type and do a couple of those. Next type, do a couple of those, so on and so forth until I think the base is done. These tufts I'm using currently are from Army Painter. The tufts I will be using in a second are from Gamer's Grass. Really, tufts are tufts, I'm not going to lie. Most tufts are just fine and will work great. It's really just whatever is available to you in your area. My local store currently stocks Army Painter, and I believe tomorrow we are receiving our first order of Gamer's Grass tufts. So that'll be exciting. So that's what I'm using now. Just because that's what I have, and conveniently that's what my local store will be selling. So, but there's all sorts of companies out there that make tufts. There's a company on Instagram that I follow called Rival Crafts. They make some really cool tufts. Alright, so that'll be good for that color for the second. I'm going to go on to the dark green. Stick some of these on. We're not covering the entire base in tufts, but we're getting close to that. We're trying to fill up as much space as possible, really, with these tufts. So it does use quite a lot of tufts, but they're not that expensive, and this army isn't that big. If I had to do hundreds of models, I wouldn't do it this way. But I think this army in total is only about 80 models or so, and most of them don't have bases this big. Most of them are normal infantry-sized bases, so it's not an issue. Alright, then I'm going to get some of these kind of bushier tufts, and I'll stick some of them on here. There we go. I wish paint were as cheap as tufts in terms of value. Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of crazy how much value tufts add to your paint jobs for, or your basing, for as cheap as they are. Just put a couple of these in here. There we go. I think I only have a couple of the little ones. The rest are kind of large, and I don't want to use them, so I'm just going to use this last little one of this type, and then we'll go on to the last type, and then we might circle back around and use some of the first kind again. So I'll open this brand new pack. These are apparently no color, and they're just wild. I think these are like, oh, here we go. They're green shrubs, and they're in the wild configuration from Gamer's Grass. So we'll put a couple of these around in a couple places. I'll use one of these longer ones. Wild, if you're curious what wild means in terms of tuft configuration, just means like this. Instead of them all being circles like Army Painter, some of them are in strange shapes. Like this is just kind of a long skinny one. Some of them are in little L's. They're in all sorts of different shapes. That's just what wild means. They can sometimes be a pain in the butt to apply because you gotta make sure you have enough space on the base to apply them, but they look cool. So I'll put 4 more of these on, and then go back to the light green and apply maybe 1 or 2 more of those, and we'll call that done. Put another kind of bigger one here. Alright, I think that looks good for those. So then I'm just going to go back to this light green, and I'm going to use just a couple of small ones. And put one down here. And hopefully our wolf will be dry by the time we're done doing this, and I can put the wash on the wolf. And then our miniature will be done as soon as we paint the base for him. Alright, I think that looks good. We'll leave it at that. So now, as you can see, it kind of looks like he's walking through a sort of varied field of tufts. It did use a decent amount of tufts. I probably used 20 or 25 on him. But like I said, I think it's worth it. You know, I saw some vids of people lightly painting tufts. Would you recommend? I guess it's one of those things where I kind of would and wouldn't recommend it. I think tufts look just fine not painting them, but I also don't think that tufts that are painted look bad. So I'd say if you put a tuft on your miniature and you don't really like the color, I would try to apply some light paint to it to see if that helped. But yeah, sort of up to you. I don't think it's something that I would necessarily recommend or not recommend, which is kind of a dumb answer because everything is up to you. It's your paint job. But it's just something that, like, I think that unpainted tufts look just perfectly fine. So I personally won't paint a tuft unless I really need it to be a color that I don't have. So, alright, then I need to find Space Wolf or Griff Charger Gray. That'll work. Griff Charger Gray. Yeah, 10 out of 10 answer, I know. It's so good. Would you do this thing? I would and I wouldn't. So good. So good. All right, so I'm just taking this Griff Charger Gray and I'm putting it on the wolf. This has a slight blue tint to it, so a blue tint on white will help maintain the white's crispness. And I'm just touching it to pull off any of this blue that got on the tops. So there we go. Now we still have very bright white, but we just have slight shadows in the little pockets of fur of this guy. And then I need some Steel Legion Drab, I think, based on... I think that's what this is. Let me look at this other guy here. Yeah, it's Steel Legion Drab. I was looking at the base rim. So yeah, here we go. Steel Legion Drab. Just going to paint this on the base rim of this guy. Being careful not to go over onto the base itself. There we go. That'll do. So then he's all done. So I'll just put him up here on this thing, and then we'll grab the other guy and we'll see how we did comparison wise. So I'll just hold them like this. Oh, the shields are different colors, I'll tell you that. They're supposed to be white, so I'll change this guy's shield, but bases are similar-ish. I used a couple different ones here. But in terms of colors, I think they match pretty well. You hold them up like this. I think they could be in a unit, no problem. Battle ready, good job. Yes, indeed, battle ready for sure. Yeah, I'd say they match close enough for a unit. I still think the red looks slightly different, but it's a lot closer now. And I think the green on the base helped, because green is a contrast color of red, and so I think having the green there helped the red conform more to the other one. So there they are. That'll be that. Thank you everybody for watching. I will be back, I think, on Friday at 1 o'clock. I may end up not being able to stream that day, but I'm hoping to be back Friday at 1 o'clock. If not, I will be back Monday at 8 p.m. all times in Eastern Standard Time, if you're not aware. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.